in my preaching and teaching on discipleship in Angola. But today I'm going to look at it from a slightly different angle. The story begins with the ministry of Jesus to the towns and villages, where he teaches in the synagogues, proclaims the good news of the kingdom, cures disease and sickness wherever he goes. Unfortunately, there is more work to be done than there are workers available. So Jesus tells his disciples to pray for workers to send to these crowds of people that he sees as sheep without a shepherd. After the amount of time that it takes to say the names of his 12 disciples, Jesus goes ahead, it seems, and sends them to go do the work. He gives them the authority to do what he has been doing all along, casting out unclean spirits and healing sickness and disease. And then he sends them out to these lost sheep of Israel who have no shepherd. As they visit the villages and towns, they are instructed to look for worthy households who can offer them hospitality. If that house is receptive to them, then their peace, or shalom, will reside with that household. If not, there will be no such blessing. Furthermore, they were to shake the dust from their feet, which is something that Jews would often do upon leaving Gentile territory. Jesus concludes his instructions to his disciples, claiming that any town or village that does not accept them will be judged more severely than Sodom and Gomorrah. This passage has much to add to the conversation about missional living and making disciples, but to be honest with you, I don't feel very missionary-ish right now. If I were wearing my missionary hat, I would look at this text as a model, not the only model, but a model for how to approach a missional life and ministry. For example, things like in verse 7, he says, as you go, not when you get there, or on Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings. The proclamation of the good news of the kingdom, that the kingdom is coming, and showing mercy towards those who suffer is a way of life, not an event on the church calendar. Jesus tells them to go forward with faith, not with what they bring to the table. Gold, silver, extra clothes, or even a staff. In this case, those things will all just get in the way. Accept the hospitality of those who are willing to hear your message, and don't feel bad when people offer to help you or even feed you. And there are many other little lessons that you can pull from there. But when I first began reading this passage during our time of Lectio Divina on Wednesday night, I tried to look at this passage from a new perspective. Instead of looking at it from the perspective of the one who is going, I wanted to try and perceive it from the view of the one who is receiving these disciples, the one showing hospitality. Jesus clearly describes two different hypothetical cities in this passage. The city that has a worthy person or household and shows hospitality will be blessed. The city who has no worthy person or house might as well be a heap of burning cinders and ashes. So I don't usually admit it. If you ask me, I'll tell you I'm from Colorado, but in actuality, I've spent just as much, if not more, time in Mississippi. I've lived there much longer than I've lived anywhere else. But I usually claim to be from Colorado. And as you may or may not know, Mississippi is known as the hospitality state. And in many ways, I think that's an appropriate designation, but in other ways, not so much. For example, the state flag shows anything but hospitality to nearly 40% of the state's residents. Some have even argued that Southern hospitality, the concept of Southern hospitality, was invented as a means to defend or sugarcoat the lifestyle of white plantation owners who depended on enslaved peoples to maintain their way of life. But regardless, Mississippi is full of some really wonderful people, many of whom have continuously and lovingly financially supported our ministry in Angola and are, wonderful friends. Generally speaking, Mississippians are very generous people, poor usually, but generous. As I was looking into the concept of hospitality, I read a couple articles. One was in Southern Living magazine, and the other in the Anchor Bible Dictionary. Southern hospitality is characterized by things like niceness, helpfulness, charm, and saying, "Y'all come back now." Whereas biblical hospitality is characterized by showing compassion and mercy toward the ger or xenos, Hebrew and Greek words for the foreigner, the stranger, or even the enemy. Jesus and his disciples were on a mission to proclaim a message that was subversive to the Roman Empire about a coming kingdom. It was likely not popular with some who wanted to keep the status quo. These disciples were doing justice and showing mercy as they went. They were looking for other people who would support them and join them in what they were doing by modeling what they had been taught by Jesus. As I said before, I don't feel very missionary-ish right now. I'm used to being, in a sense, on the front lines, the man with a message. Life has taken a sudden drastic turn. Here I am in Virginia, stuck in my house. Not stuck, but basically confined to our house, and not out on the front lines like I've spent much of my adult life. And that's why this passage, I suppose, why I was inclined to look at it from another perspective. I'm not the one going right now, in a sense. I'm still very involved with the ministry in Angola. I'm still very much in a supportive role of what's going on there, but I'm not there. And when I think about what messages are being preached right now, I'm glad she's here, I think. But I think of Brittany. I think of many of her friends and colleagues who are preaching a very, very important, very needed message about justice and mercy. I grew up and I was taught that mission was a message. I don't think no one intended to teach me that. But justice and mercy were just things that were done in order to get people to believe your message. Sort of the whole, like, people don't care what you know until they know you care kind of concept. That's probably has some truth to it, but there's sort of a manipulative nature to that as well. The mission of Jesus, yes, it was a message, but it was also mercy. It wasn't one or the other. And much of my teaching and background has focused so much on the message, and has neglected the mercy. And I mean, to conclude things, I have, as I was writing this out, I got to the conclusion and it's just blank. I don't know what the conclusion of this message is really, other than the fact that I don't have to be on the front lines. Sometimes being a supporter, being one of those households that accepted those disciples and showed hospitality to the disciples who were on a mission. My mission is not always the most important one, or what I perceive as my mission. And like I said, I didn't actually come up with a conclusion because I I wrestled with it a lot and never came to a specific one. But hospitality, when you look at the biblical concept of hospitality, it's not the same as saying, y'all come back now, you hear? Or, um, that Southern charm, whatever it is. It's about the stranger, the orphan, the widow, the people who are different, um, the people who are oppressed, showing mercy to them, not to, you know, your second cousin's neighbor from the next town over, or I don't know. So as we, I don't know, as we are stuck at home and not out, you know, being the church in a way that we have have been accustomed to in the past, think of how can we show hospitality to, and I mean, I can't help but think of this in terms of the, um, for lack of a better word, the Black Lives Matter movement right now. How can we support our brothers and sisters who are uh, maybe finally having a voice, finally getting their message across? I don't have to be the one with the message. Um, I'm used to being the one with the message, with the voice. Um, so I don't have answers. It's just something that has been on my heart and that I've been thinking about, and I thought I would share it with you as well. And some of it I stole from Claire and Tyler and others from Wednesday night, but um, but yeah, that's all I have for now. Love you guys, and thanks for this opportunity.